not just this week, but over the past few years, we've kind of been living through, at least tentatively, a kind of, the end of history in some ways. I mean, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and, forgive me if this is kind of like cliche ground to tread, but just to set the stage a bit, I mean, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, there really was a very strong belief throughout, the Anglo-American world especially, but I think throughout much of the world in general, that, market-based liberal democracy had really triumphed, that it had kind of neutralized and defeated and outlasted all of its serious critics, not only on, the left, but on the right as well. And that, history as, a trajectory in which things develop and change was really over in some kind of way. And, if you go back to the 1990s, you really do see in a lot of the kind of commentary, a lot of the literature from that time, from liberals especially, a sense that, the future is not really open-ended. A lot of political possibilities are now foreclosed. And I think for a variety of reasons, particularly beginning in 2016, although you could also start from the 2008 financial crisis, you can really see how fleeting and kind of tenuous that narrative was, that story of things. I mean, it's really the idea that, history, broadly speaking, isn't going to proceed or develop in any kind of way, or that liberalism is not going to have, that it doesn't have any credible critics. I mean, those are, I think even some liberals would probably not accept that anymore. So my book is an attempt, it's an essay collection. It's an attempt to, with all of that in mind, kind of explore our current political moment, kind of post Bernie Sanders moment, also a post Donald Trump moment as well. I think it's a book that, people who are regular consumers of progressive media, will certainly enjoy, but I'm also hoping it will reach an audience of people who aren't regular consumers. I think if you're somebody who's perplexed, perhaps confused by the animus, the dissatisfaction that, people under 40 especially are feeling with liberalism or with an institution like the Democratic Party today, that this book might have answers to some of your questions.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it, because I've always found the concept of the end of history, which is just the end of warfare as we know it, and the beginning essentially of, yes, neoliberal capitalism taking over United States hegemony, to be an immensely arrogant proposition. I mean, I was just talking about this with Derek Davison, our first guest. This pending relationship between China and Russia, and Saudi Arabia being in the mix as well, that spells bad things for U.S. empire, and that means the end of history lasted, what, I don't know, 3 decades?
Yeah, I think even that's generous, and that's to say nothing of the critics of the liberal consensus that have emerged, just within countries like the United States, which has since 2016, like I said, has experienced really strong critiques both from the right and from the socialist left as well, through the Sanders movement and other things.
I wanted to pull up this tweet, if we could, from a reporter who got this quote from Tommy Tuberville. I don't know if you've seen this, Luke. Just wanted to see if you'd respond to this, because I found this amusing, given that you do some writing for Jacobin and you have such a great historical context. Listen to how silly this quote is, right? Okay, we have this up. Tuberville claims Putin is invading Ukraine because Russia is a communist country that needs more land. He can't feed his people, said Tuberville. It's a communist country, so he can't feed his people, so they need more farmland. All right, I think we have a good grasp of why that's stupid, but perhaps if Tuberville is listening, maybe you could break that down for us.
I mean, so forgive me, Tuberville is a United States senator. He's not doing a bit by calling himself senator.
No, he's not doing a bit. He was a football coach, but is now one of the 100 most powerful people in the country, 150 or whatever, from Alabama.
Well, yeah, I confess I actually am not familiar with him, but yeah, I mean, that's in some ways, I mean, it's an absurd comment, but in some ways I think it's it's very emblematic of the strange valence that anything to do with Russia has taken on in the United States since 2016. I think that it's difficult to overstate how powerful and how influential the kind of mid-century, mid-20th century anti-communist impulse was, how much that animated not just conservatives, but liberals in the United States especially as well. And, you've really seen since 2016, where liberals in particular were very concerned about alleged links between Donald Trump and Russia. You really saw, you saw a lot of things like this, right? And it wasn't just from conservatives. It was from there was I believe it was Joyanne Reid, the MSNBC commentator, talking about authoritarian communist Russia. I can't remember who it was who was talking about Melania Trump, perhaps, and Soviet Yugoslavia, things like that. The impulse remains, even though there's nothing, it remains as a reflex, even though, there's nothing, it goes without saying, there's nothing communist about Russia. If the, and this is one of the things I find very perplexing about the liberal attitude here is that, if you want to understand why certain figures on the right seem to be admirers of Vladimir Putin or Russia in its current incarnation, I don't think you have to resort to any kind of conspiratorial speculation at all. There's a very obvious reason why people on the new right in the United States would admire a country like Russia as it currently is. It's an oligarchic system with built around a single kind of strongman, charismatic personality. There's a parliamentary democracy attached to it, although it's a very managed and compromised one. And Putinism is also something that's kind of branded itself with the imprint of, nationalist traditionalism. So, obviously that's a package that would be attractive in many ways, a model that would be attractive to plenty of figures on the American right today. And I think that's how we should understand it.
And Tuberville's a bit behind the eight ball there, because you have Tucker Carlson speaking fondly of Putin and the invasion into Ukraine, at the very least saying, why do I care? I'm rooting for Russia, those kinds of things. Other right-wing politicians claiming the same thing, while at the same time, some of the, I'm asking for ideological consistency on the right, so that's probably a fool's errand in and of itself, but they're still trying to use the old Cold War propaganda framework that very much exists, but is being washed away a bit by the admiration for the imperialism and the nationalism of a figure like Putin and his government.